Welcome to another episode of George in the Jungle, presented as always by Remington Tavern. Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can find them on Instagram at Remitav Cincy. That's REMITAV Cincy with a Y, or follow them on Facebook. And with that, George, I did want to say one thing about Remington. I saw some of their posts with the karaoke and $2 PBRs, and I'm a little disappointed. I live 2.5 hours away.
You would have fun there. You would have a lot of fun.
Without karaoke is one of my very favorite things in this entire world.
I hear you do a lot of good Madonna tunes.
I don't know about all that, but I don't think I've ever sang a Madonna song. I sang a lot of stuff on karaoke. Madonna would not
do you like on karaoke?
I do some 90s alt rock.
Good. Okay.
Some Linkin Park, some just different thing. I don't mind being a crooner at times, a little Boys to Men.
About the only thing I could do is sometimes me and the wife will do Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash and do a little Jackson.
If you are a regular at listening on this show, at times you will hear Mrs. Vogel singing in the background. So,
and she is terrible. She can do Jackson well. Jackson, and she does It's Raining Men. She can do that okay.
Oh my goodness.
Everything else, she's terrible.
We'll move on from that and start the show here. But Big 12 Media Days are upon us out of lovely, incredibly hot Las Vegas. Chad touched on that on the show last night. I believe 2 days ago it was 116 degrees in Vegas, and he said it was even like 101 at night, like at 9 o'clock at night.
I've been out there when it's like that. I want to say it was like Memorial Day weekend, maybe. And I've been out there. I was dumb enough to go out there in August one time too. And you go out and it's like, my God, I got to get to the next stop quickly. And you know, everything looks close. It looks like, oh, this big casino's right down the street. That you walk quite a bit to get to the next spot because everything's just so darn big. And man, I've been there and you see the tar just boiling on the blacktop. And it's like, just get me to that next oasis of air conditioning that also has some free drinks if I just sit down at a poker machine. I mean, it gets roasting out there.
Sunday was the hottest day in the recorded history of Las Vegas. 120 degrees.
That is brutal.
And tonight at 11 p.m., it's expected to be 101.
I hope they enjoy it out there. You know, you that's what you get if you're going to be in the desert.
That's why I thank Keegan.
That's, you know, although it felt like 101 here earlier before it rained. Holy God. I had to go out and sub in a golf league. And boy, before that air was moving, it was brutal. Just brutal. I heard, Aaron, that at the Big 12 Media Day, that they misspelled Cincinnati. Is that true? Did you hear that?
So apparently it was EA Sports that misspelled Cincinnati. On the locker, it was spelled Cincinnati. And then they changed it to Mason Fletcher because they couldn't misspell that. And that was apparently while they were researching how to actually spell Cincinnati correctly. Despite it being on the jersey, or I don't know, put it in your phone. Just put it in your phone. You have to actually spell it wrong to autocorrect it incorrectly.
Yeah, that would be. I guess I shouldn't say it would be hard to do because it's happened before.
And it'll happen again.
Yeah, it's happened quite a bit. And I don't take offense to that. I don't think anyone should. It's not like, we're named New York or Detroit or something like that. People do confuse the N's and the T's, and are there two N's at the beginning, two N's towards the end? How many T's? I get it. If you don't spell it all the time, I mean, I grew up around here, so obviously I knew how to spell it. But hey, that's the least of my concerns. But I was just curious because I heard that.
That was a thing that happened. But of course, before we get into the Cincinnati portion of everything, Brett Yormark did speak, and some of the things that I found interesting that he was talking about, as he is always trying to sell the brand. I think he must live for sales. I picture him as the coffee is for closers type guy. But he said he is optimistic that officials will, and this all comes courtesy of our own Keegan Nicholson, but he said he's optimistic that officials will soon have sponsor patches on their uniforms during games. His top priority is growth and creating value for our member schools, comparing the Big 12 to a young startup business, saying the conference is flexible, wants to be aggressive and very proactive. The Big 12 is partnering with Microsoft to provide tablets on the sidelines during games, adding that the conference has partnered with TuneIn for a Big 12 radio station, and is confident that the Big 12 will soon have an affiliation with the Las Vegas Bowl, which currently belongs to the Big 10 and the SEC, and says that it is critically important. It is a critically important market for us in the future. All of that seems very interesting to me, as he is just consistently, always, anytime he speaks at this point, now that we've gotten past the growing the conference and shopping talk and all of that, he's talking an awful lot about ways to bring in money to try and do whatever he can in whatever capacity he can, even including selling the conference name to try and catch up to the Big 10 and the SEC.
I'm glad that guy is the commissioner of the Big 12 right now. I mean, you need guys like that. Would I want to be like working for him right under him? Probably not, because he never stops and expects more and more and more. Would I want him working for me? Maybe not, because I never know what he's going to do next, that maybe he didn't run past me. But for the conference, he's outstanding. This reminds me, on a much smaller scale, but it's when Brian Kelly got to Cincinnati, and his whole thing was about marketing the program. He's like, he's got Nippert Stadium. He calls it the Wrigley Field of college football. That was a genius move by him. It made people think, oh God, I'm kind of missing something. Yeah, it's this old stadium that's been here for a long time, right in the middle of campus. It's not that big, but it's something special. You've got to look for things like that. And Kelly, when he was at Central Michigan one time, did you hear the story about him renting the cherry picker bucket and getting a bullhorn and screaming at the students to come to the game? I
don't know that I've heard that story, but we all know
like that. So that's this kind of thinking. It's like, you got to think. And I would not be a great marketing guy, because I don't push boundaries like that. But yeah, Brian Kelly said, and I saw this story. I asked him if it was true. He said it was. He might deny it now, but I doubt it after seeing his speech at the LSU basketball game. I think he'd do anything. He had this cherry picker bucket outside the stadium at Central Michigan, and he, as the head coach, before the game, was in that bucket with a bullhorn, thanking people for coming to the game, imploring students on campus to please come to the game. And, there's the gate. You get in for free or whatever. Let's go. Let's get as many people. That's what it's all about, is anything you can do to draw attention, and generally good attention. Although, the P.T. Barnum said any publicity is good publicity, whether they're just as long as your name's out there. I don't know if that's quite necessarily true anymore, but I do believe that they've got the right guy for the job to try to keep up with the Joneses here. And are they going to pass the Joneses? Yeah, good thing. Chad said, good thing there weren't high winds when Coach Kelly was in that bucket. But it's just that kind of thinking, and that's why he's successful. He sells the hell out of his program and himself, and he gets the job done. And on a little grander scale, Yormark's trying to do the same thing with the Big 12, and I love that kind of thinking of like, hey, we've got to do what we have to do, and you need an aggressive guy like that for the Big 12.
Yeah, I've even seen talks of them potentially looking into an ad-based channel on TV where they have a Big 12 network, but it's not under an umbrella of anybody else. They're creating their own revenue based on the ads that you watch and all of that. And we'll see if anything comes to fruition of that. But just, again, exploring every avenue, it seems, to try and find extra money to try and catch up to the Big Ten and the SEC, because truth be told, there's not a quick way to do that at this point in time. You have to nickel and dime your way to get as close as possible. And who knows how close you're ever going to get, but at least you're not standing idly by and just hoping something falls into your lap. And I don't know. I think everybody who is a fan of this team, a fan of this conference, any team in this conference, should be excited by the fact that this guy is going to bat for you in every way, shape, and form he can try and find.
Yeah, and you hope they can hang on to him for a while and let this thing build before, I really do. I hope he can see it through and get it to where he thinks, okay, I got it to where I could. Now I can hand it off to someone, because it's not easy to do what he's doing, and it's not easy to go banging on these doors, and he's got connections out the wazoo.
Right.
And it's not always easy to keep leveraging that and all that, but some guys are built that way. I'm not quite built like that. I'm really not, but I'm fascinated by guys who don't care if they knock on a door and they get it shut in their face. He doesn't care. He'll go to the next door. It doesn't bother him.
When I was in sales, I mean, I feel like they always talked about you have to get 100 no's sometimes to get the one yes. And I don't feel like he's afraid to get those 100 no's.
No, that's I'm not wired that way. I'm a little more, I don't know what it is. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm just not wired that way. But some guys are, and the guys who are, a lot of times, like him, are very successful and do some great things. And it was an excellent hire for the Big 12 to go with this guy and know, like, hey, we need someone like that that pushes it down the road as far as they can. And he's been doing that. And it's somewhat fascinating to watch, because you see how they clawed their way pretty much past the ACC in the hierarchy of conferences. I mean, and the ACC's got great basketball schools, damn good football schools that have won national titles. But it seems like with the Big 12 and the way, he's pushed it down the road, it seems like if you had to rank them, that the Big 12 would be ahead of the ACC right now. And it certainly seems like it's going to be that way in terms of revenue.
I agree. Moving gears to Cincinnati and Scott Satterfield being there and talking, and you had Luke Kandra there to represent the team. You had Derek Canteen filling in for Dante Corleone. You had Mason Fletcher. You had Corey Kiner. A lot of talk there. Of course, the biggest news coming from Scott Satterfield in regards to Dante Corleone, as we found out today that maybe he's a little bit further along with this blood clot thing than we anticipated a week ago, as it seems that he's back working out at times with the team. Of course, it sounds like they are being very, very cautious in everything that they're doing. They are still very much in tune with everything that the doctors are discussing in regards to his health. But it sounds like they are optimistic in regards to him being on the field this season. And it was good news coming out of Vegas today in regards to Dante Corleone.
Very good news. And the fact that he's able to do that now, that's a very good sign. And they're going to monitor him. He's in the best hands. UC has great medical people. I feel like you could not find better hands to be in than what we have right here. Maybe as good, but not better. And they're going to do the right thing by the young man. They're not going to do anything stupid. I don't think his family's going to let him do anything stupid. That's very good news, and I'm so happy for him. And because that was a blow, and just to get him back doing those things and being part of the team on and off the field is big for the team. I mean, that's one of the leaders, if not the leader, right now. He's the guy that rallied the troops when Luke Fickell went to Wisconsin, and he staked that flag in the ground and said, "I'm staying in Cincinnati." And so it's a big deal for this team. We always say heart and soul and this and that, but I'll tell you what, he's as much of the heart and soul of this program right now as anybody. So that's great news. And then you hope it gets to the point where he can do the things on the football field he does before, and then maybe he can go on and have a successful career on the gridiron. But one step at a time, and they'll take it that way. But this is terrific news, because I don't know about you, I didn't think it would happen this quickly, that he could return to that kind of activity when we heard what we heard a few weeks ago.
Yeah, most certainly did not. We also got to hear the players talk about the kind of blow it felt to the team, both on the field and in the locker room. They talked about just their personal relationships with him and how much he means to them. Each of these players talked about that. So it's not like he's just with the defensive guys or just with the defensive line. Like, he's got relationships built with all of these guys. He is a leader, both vocally and leading by example. And just we've talked about this. He is the heartbeat of Cincinnati football. Like, he legitimately is.
Yeah, he comes off as a Pied Piper kind of guy.
Yeah,
where he is a leader. People love him. They love to follow him. True to everything he says and does. And so what else could you ask for? And so this news is great for the team, great for him, great for his family. And I just really, really hope that he can keep taking these steps and get back to where he was. And look, this is a good sign. I mean, I feel good about the possibility all of that will happen.
Kind of building on that, the rest of the conversation, well, I won't say the rest, but a majority of the conversation from Coach Satterfield, from not so much John Cunningham, but more so from the players, and all four of them, is just the emphasis that has been placed on the acronym EAT, which is what is it? Attitude. I have it written down in my notes here. Effort, attitude, toughness, and just rebuilding the entire culture in that locker room, and the leaders that were there that were a part of picking out in Luke and Mason and Corey, and just picking out the players that came through in the transfer portal and making sure that they fit on this team, and having the say with the coaches and all of that. And just, it kind of just gave an emphasis on how much that all of these players have been a part of building this team, not just being a part of the team, not just leading the team that the coaches built, but building the team themselves and being part of that process. And I think that as they go putting together this locker room, putting together this team going into this season. They have emphasized that this has been the toughest offseason that Coach Satterfield has ever seen. Nico has said the same thing. Most of the players have said the same thing when asked. I don't know that anybody has said anything contrary to that. But they also talk about how the emphasis on connecting the team, because discipline was an issue, and making sure that these guys feel, not when you're adding 47, 48 players, whatever the final number ended up being, it's tough to get the buy-in on somebody who was not a part of what you went through last year in a terribly difficult season. So it sounds like they're trying to do everything they can to get there, but it's fascinating to hear them talk every single time. I don't want to say they sound like robots or anything like that, but I think they genuinely speak from the bottom of their hearts, knowing what they went through and trying to get everybody on board and moving in the same direction, rowing in the same direction, if you want to take that adage.
Well, yeah, I feel like that they needed a reset. The coaching staff knew they needed a reset. I think the players knew they needed a reset. And this offseason was a total reset. I mean, it felt like the reset was before when the previous staff left and you had but that was just like, you know how that is. There's
it was such a short offseason. You didn't have the time to put together a recruiting class to go through the motions. Yeah,
you can with what you've got.
Yeah,
and when it blows up like it did last year, you got to have some players. You know, you got to have some guys like Kiner and Corleone and Fletcher and those guys that are like, I want to make it happen here. And so the coaches trust them. They trust the coaches. Luke Kandra, there's another one who came in last year and has established himself as one of those guys. And I think the coaches probably put a lot of trust into those guys. And I just wonder, maybe this didn't happen once, but I just wonder how many guys that were in that portal that they were going after or they hosted or kicked the tires on, that the players had a chance to be around. And the players said, Coach, this may not be a guy for us. You know what I mean? Like that's not, I feel like there's that kind of trust there. And I hope there is. If there is, then you're going to have a hell of a product. So I hope that's the case. It sounds like it. The way these guys, you know, we're talking about some players that could have gone anywhere they wanted to go and play college football.
Any of those four guys that were there, Johnson,
they stayed here through the debacle of last year because they want to make it work here. And so that really, first of all, that gets me excited about this team, that you got kids like that want to make it work here. I mean, you got to love that. You've got to love that. So it feels like that kind of thing where maybe there were some guys that, you know, the recruiting staff and the coaching staff and the players are saying, well, okay, this guy, he's a buy-in guy, but this guy, maybe not. And so hopefully they got it right. And you're not going to get it 100% right, especially in one offseason. It's not going to happen. And you're not going to have the depth you need. You're not going to, but you can feel the momentum shift. And then you can see it on the field. And hopefully they see it on the field. We're going to find out because it was a rude awakening for them last year. You know, I thought, and I think a lot of people, and injuries figured into this, but I thought the defense was going to be damn good. I didn't think we had to worry too much about the defensive backfield, but then corner we did, but an injury played into that. Certain things did. But still, that thing blew up. They were flat out horrible. And so hopefully they've got they were. Am I crazy?
No. You just
okay.
Laying it all out there.
It was just not good. And so, and I think these players we've been talking about that are the leadership of this team were embarrassed by that. And they wanted to get it right. And that's beautiful. That's when you know. I feel like, and now I'm really going off on a tangent.
No, you're fine.
But that kind of stuff is what works. I feel like that's kind of what's happened with the Bengals and Zach Taylor, and they get these guys that want to be a part of what's going on here, and some guys may or may not fit because, believe me, there used to be a lot of trying to pound, round pegs in the square holes and stuff like that. And I think all that, and I don't think this staff ever wanted to do that, but they had what they had last year. I just feel like they've got the players bought in, and they can see what they see on the field, and the players are the eyes and ears in the locker room that are like, yes, this dude's on board. So hopefully we see some improvement this year on the field. Hopefully everyone's going in the same direction, and not just the players, but the coaching staff as well. We'll see. They needed a reset. I feel like they got it. And I'll tell you what, if they did, UC fans owe those kids a lot of freaking props for sticking it out and helping to see it through and helping this coaching staff through this, what's been so far a rough transition.
I agree. I know that whether it's with me tonight or whether it's with Keegan tonight, Chad, and with one of us, we'll be doing a deeper dive into all of the things that were Big 12 Media Days, so we won't get too much in the weeds there. But one of the big stories coming out, and I would be remiss if I didn't discuss it here because I can't really see a spot for it. There's going to be plenty of Bearcats talk. But did you catch what Mike Gundy said today?
I did not.
Oh, no, that guy. So Mike Gundy, I'm sure if you haven't heard by now, Ollie Gordon, the star running back for Oklahoma State, got a DUI a couple weeks ago. I think about 2 weeks ago now. And I have the quote here. Mike Gundy said, I looked it up on my phone. What would be the legal limit? 2 or 3 beers or 4? I'm not justifying what Ollie did. I'm telling you what decision I made. Well, I thought I've probably done that 1,000 times in my life. He went on to say that the only punishment he can really see himself giving Ollie Gordon is maybe having to carry the ball 50 times in the first game. He's not going to miss any playing time. He doesn't see any reason to miss any playing time. And he's just going to play the guy.
Well, yeah, that's not the way to handle that situation in my book. Now, do you hang the kid? No, but he's probably not a kid. You don't hang him. But there should probably be something for that. You've got to know better than do that. And you just do. And I'll tell you what, I felt like down in the case when I saw Ollie Gordon run the ball against UC last year. In the second half, I probably did. But I didn't go out driving after I did it. But yeah, that's something you can't. That what he did is damn near condoning it, right?
Right.
And you got to go the other way. You don't condone that. You don't say, and whether you've done it, whether 1 million people have done it, yeah, you know what? You can name any crime out there. 1 million people have done it. It doesn't mean, okay, we'll give you a pass on this one.
Right.
It means there's 1 million people who did it the wrong way. I want you to do it the right way. That's a little surprising to me. I know he doesn't want – I'm sure he thinks he's protecting the kid, and I shouldn't put words in his mouth. But that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. That's surprising. Disappointing. I'm not condemning the kid myself. I think there should be some punishment. You don't hang him. It's like, dude, we all know this.
It was a 1.0, or I'm sorry, 0.10 on the BAC, where 0.08 is the legal limit in Oklahoma. So for whatever that's worth.
I'll tell you what, we know the laws. We know the rule. And if you get busted and you're doing it, you're wrong. That's the bottom line. And you can disagree with the law, but you know it's the law. And I'm not saying, I mean, I'm sitting here boozing now. I'm not going to drive down to the store and get a pizza after this. I'm not.
I guess
I might order Uber Eats And maybe Ollie can't afford Uber Eats now, but I'm guessing with NIL and he probably can. But I'm just saying, I'm not an angel, and I've had plenty of transgressions. So I feel for the kid, but I don't condone it. Right?
Just all you had to do,
got to put that lesson there.
all you had to do, suspend him for the first game, because it's usually a cupcake game anyway.
Right, they're probably playing Southwestern Oklahoma or something,
and move on.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, I don't know.
Just say we're handling it internally. You don't have to say anything like that. Just say we're handling it internally and move on. I don't know. Maybe the most viral
cannon. I don't know if that mullet's gotten to it. I don't know what's going on.
Maybe the most viral moment of his since I'm a man, I'm 40.
Remember that? I'm a man. That was a little unhinged too. It's like I get it. You want to protect your players, but my God,
he's something special.
He is something else. I'll tell you.
The Reds. We'll switch gears completely to the Reds. They are currently beating the Colorado Rockies 7-4. It took them a little bit to get there, as they were initially up 5-0. But since we last spoke, they swept the Yankees, and then they got swept by the Tigers, which are opposite ends of the spectrum as far as good team, terrible team. They're doing what they're supposed to do against Colorado at this point, but we'll see how this game ends. It's still, I think, the bottom of the fifth, so end of the fifth. So going into the last third of the game here, these Reds are so weird. I don't understand.
How do you
don't understand?
Look, I know the Yankees aren't playing their best ball right now, and they've got injuries, and Rizzo's out, Stanton's out. I get all that, but still, to go up there and sweep them was impressive. And I'm like, okay,
the first sweep
now,
the first sweep of the Yankees by the Reds since the 1976 World Series. The first time the Yankees have ever been swept at home in a 3-game interleague series. Ever.
And then you turn around and you come home and play the lowly Tigers, who are about what the Reds are record-wise. And you get swept by them, and you lose a couple of one-run games. And
you blew an opportunity to really
That's what they've done all year.
You blew an opportunity.
Every time people think, okay, now they got some traction, let's go. And that's why they can sweep the Rockies, all right? They beat them last night. They can sweep the Rockies and take 2 out of 3 against the Marlins this weekend, and I'm still not buying in. They are what they are, and they're going to finish somewhere around. I said at the beginning of the season they'd get 88 wins. So right now, going into tonight, and they're leading tonight, so maybe, but they got to go like, let me look at this, 45, so they're 43 and 48. So they got to get 45 more wins to get to 88, which I think that gets them in. I think you get a wild card at least at 88. I really do. Yeah. I don't know if you win the division the way the Brewers are going, but you do get a wild card. But I don't see them doing that. You got to go 45 and 26 the rest of the way. And maybe they do, but I don't see the evidence of that. I don't see anything leading me to believe that's going to happen, because they'll kick ass on this homestand from here on out. And then coming out of the break, they'll do what they did a couple years ago and go somewhere and get swept, and the rest is history. I don't know what it is. I wish we want to blame injuries, and they do have a lot of guys that are key, and they keep getting hurt. But I'm not going to get myself excited about it. I'm not.
Well, I got a couple stats that I wanted to cherry pick here just for fun, because I think these are some reasons that they're still in any type of hunt whatsoever. Ellie De La
Always
Cruz.
have a chance, but I just don't believe.
Ellie De La Cruz has 45 steals this season. This stat comes from MLB Network. They posted it today. He has 45 steals this season. He has as many steals as the entire Twins organization at 45. More than the Blue Jays at 42, more than the Braves at 41, more than the Tigers at 40, more than the Yankees at 37, and more than the San Francisco Giants at 30. By himself. That's crazy.
That's amazing.
And also, the 2024 NL pitching WAR leaders. This stat comes courtesy of Baseball Reference. This came earlier today, so 7 hours ago. So who knows what's happened since? But Reynaldo Lopez at a 3.4 WAR was leading all of the National League. Behind him at 3.3, Andrew Abbott. Behind him, Hunter Green at 3.2. You have the number 2 and number 3 win above replacement pitchers in all of the National League. Crazy. Hunter Green, who can't buy a run support. He can't buy run support.
I feel so bad for that kid. I mean, I feel so bad because he's pitching his
7
butt.
innings the other night. 7 innings.
Yeah.
You wanted him to go late into a game. He goes late into a game, and it all blows up at the end.
Better at that. He's turning into the guy that they took second overall. I mean, he's turning into that dude. Yeah, the starting pitching has been damn good. I mean, Abbott was outstanding last night. 7 shutout innings in that game against the Rockies. You know, Green's last outing, you couldn't ask any more from the dude. It's such a shame that it doesn't translate to wins. I can't fault the starting pitching, even though, you know, Spires didn't have his best outing the last time. It wasn't god awful like he killed the team, but
good enough to send Graham Ashcraft back to AAA again.
Yeah, and Graham was like okay in his outing. I wish he'd gone deeper, but he was okay. You know, Frankie's been okay. Their starting pitching has been fine. The problem is, as you said with Hunter Green, they don't score. They don't support these guys. They don't put them in position where maybe they, you know, David Bell will give them another batter or 2 or 3 because you're in a 1-run game or you're down because your offense hasn't done anything. I mean, these dudes, I'm trying to, here it is. The Reds' batting average right now as a team is 226, which I believe that I saw something today, and I can't say if it's 100% true. I don't even know where you would research this. I got a couple people I know that might be able to do it, but it's like their lowest average this late in the season since 1967, which is crazy.
Now, in fairness, all of baseball is also down.
Correct. That's what I was going to say. All of baseball is also down, but 226. Do you know what 226 should get you? A ticket to Louisville or Chattanooga.
Less than, I mean, that's right
or
in between.
Billy.
It's between 1 and 4 and 1 and 5. That's
I mean, it's terrible. And yes, they are not the worst in baseball this year with batting average. You know, Marte's struggling, even though, you know, he came back and it's a limited sample. He's had 40 some at bats, but he's struggling. Benson had a homer tonight, thank goodness, because he needs to get going. He's having a historically terrible season at the plate. I mean, the dude struck out. Oh, I got it somewhere here. Damn near had 133 strikeouts and 247 at bats. Now he's got some walks in there. That's not plate appearances, but still, half of the time he struck out when he didn't, you know, take a walk. It's terrible. You got to do better than that. You can't win that way. And so I don't care how many starters you have who are in the WAR standings at the top. It's not the starting pitching for sure, which is good news for the Reds because they put a lot of eggs in that starting pitching basket. And, you know, how many times have I said if Lodolo can stay healthy? But if he can stay healthy,
Back to the IL today.
it's just
It's that blister. It's the blister that they kept him pitching on. Unbelievable. There have been some high points, though, in the past week, George, as Ellie becomes the Reds' only representative at the All-Star game this season, down in that Dallas Fort Worth area. They'll be in the Rangers Stadium there. You also had Reese Hines got called up yesterday and proceeded to beat an upper deck bomb in his debut. He had another hit tonight that I believe hit 110 exit velo. He's mashing the ball, and I am not upset about any of that. And also the Reds made a trade for outfielder Austin Slater and cash from the Giants in exchange for left-handed pitcher Alex Young, who was not able to crack the bullpen this season as they got some dudes pitching lefty.
Yeah, the Slater deal, I mean, he's kind of just a guy. He's been around. The Reds were desperate. They were desperate. They had, had Nick Martini go down. Fairchild goes down. Not only did they have to make that deal, they called up Reese Hines, who only 23 years old. He's interesting because he's kind of gotten better in the minors, and they drafted him on this massive power potential, which we saw last night. Like when he hits them, he hits them.
Saw it tonight, yeah.
And he started making a little more contact as he went through the minors, and had a pretty decent year at Chattanooga last year, the year before, where he hit 260 something or whatever, had some good power numbers. He seems like a guy that's getting better. And he's only 23.
George, he's 2 of 3 tonight with a double and a triple.
Yeah, I'm really excited about him, and you probably can get to see the interview with his mom on the game tonight.
I did actually. She said it was unreal.
I was laughing my butt off last night when he said when he got the call and he called his mom, and she was screaming that he was getting called up, and he told her, I can't do this right now. I'll call you back. And he hung up on her. And I thought, did he really do that? So they asked the mom the question tonight, what happened? And she goes, well, he called me. He FaceTimed me and said, guess what? I'm called up to the major leagues. I'm heading to Cincinnati. And I just started screaming. He goes, I can't do this right now. I'll call you back. And he hung up. So he did. I think that is beautiful. And so he called her back. She said he called back about a half hour later and said, are you done screaming? Because I need to settle down and get ready for this game tonight. And the dude said he had no sleep. He drives up to Cincinnati from Louisville and then goes out there, busted his butt to get that double. That was a single plus a base. I mean, he turned that into a double. And then he mashes that bomb. What a debut. I mean, that's, Ellie had a hell of a debut. Jay Bruce had a hell of a debut. Reese Hines had a hell of a debut. Those are debuts that just stick out to me. And they're good for him. And I hope he fits in because he is still young.
Too.
And he could be that corner outfielder that can hammer the ball.
I hope he sticks. I love the energy. Watching him today hustle. I didn't see the triple, but I did see him hustle today for the double. And he just is a guy that he's got a motor. And I don't know that he was touted as that guy when he was coming up through the minors as a guy who had a nonstop motor. But he's here and he is trying to make a case to stay. And I love it.
I want to say, golly, I should know this, but I think I'm just going off the top of my head. He was like a second round pick. He was at IMG Academy. and the Reds loved his power potential. And he did have power to burn, but obviously he needed to work on making more consistent contact and things like that. But my God, maybe they got something here. We'll see. I mean, I hope it works out, because that would be a plus for them, because he had slipped. I think he was their number 15 prospect on the pipeline rankings they do, number 15 prospect for the Reds. So he'd slipped a little bit from his early days, but sometimes it takes a little time for these guys to get it, and they got to mature a little bit. So hopefully that works for him, because that would be really, really nice. And oh boy, here I go. But here comes my optimism, because I'm thinking about the Collier kid that's down there that's only 19. You're looking at these guys. McLean comes back, Ellie doing what he's doing. They've got some exciting young guys, and if this guy can add to it, they can have themselves something. But I don't expect it this year, and I say that every stinking season.
Well, going back to the high notes.
This is 2024. I did say 3 years ago, look out for the Reds in 2024.
Going back to the high notes, just touch on your thoughts of Ellie De La Cruz as your lone all-star representative.
Well, he had to be on that team, doing what he's doing on the bases and those stolen base numbers you ran through, the excitement he generates, and the kids love the dude. He's a draw, and for very good reason. I mean, he's just, you never know what he's going to do. And he hits the hell out of the ball when he hits it. And he's really, really, really good for the game off the field. I mean, he's a personable guy. He's doing everything he can to, become a guy. He's, done very well learning English.
I was going to say, I'm glad you brought that up, because learning English makes him marketable. It makes him marketable to not just the Spanish-speaking community, but also to the English-speaking community.
But he and his people know that. But still, to his credit, there's been a lot of guys come up with that kind of thing and did not, take that step because they didn't feel they needed to. They didn't, whatever. He wants to. He doesn't just think he needs to. He wants to. He's just such a likable, fun guy for the game. I mean, that guy is he's a superstar, and he's a potential megastar, not just for this team, for Major League Baseball. I mean, he's the kind of guy, he's come up and had the kind of electricity, doesn't hit the home runs like Griffey Jr. when he was the kid and did all, but he's got that kind of personality, that kind of, the kids love that stuff because he's just got this thing about him. And old people like it too, because I love the guy.
I agree. Going right down the road, though, to the other stadium downtown, Joe Burrow made a little bit of headlines this week as he did a podcast with Pardon My Take, and some of the things that he has said coming out of that podcast. He says, basically, he said that if you aren't playing football, people forget about you. He wants to give them a reason to talk about him again. He also mentioned that he wants to play for the U.S. Olympic flag football team, said it would be embarrassing if the U.S. did not win gold, and said, him, Jamar, Justin, his friends out there playing football, thinks it'd be cool. He also touched on the NFL going to 18-game season, saying there should be 2 bye weeks. This caught a little bit of mixed emotion from both current players and past players, but says that there should be 2 bye weeks, one of those bye weeks being around week 13 for the entire league, with Pro Bowl festivities occurring that week, similar to the NBA All-Star Weekend. People don't like that he's advocating for that 18-game league, or 18-game season rather. But then I don't know. I mean, and then the other thing he did mention that the piano playing has helped his rehab. We did find out a couple weeks ago that he's been trying to learn how to play piano, and said that the piano playing has helped his rehab. A lot of stuff there, a lot of different stuff there. But of course, it was a podcast, so he was all over the place with wherever Pardon My Take took him. But anything that you catch, anything perk your interest, I guess, there.
I love the fact that he says that he wants to be playing football so people don't forget about him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you've been injured.
I have no reason to believe he doesn't take any of this rehab seriously, or anything.
Even as he's out partying,
he's not ready to become a Vogue model full time or anything like that.
Well, he's also been partying in the Hamptons.
Yeah,
at the white party.
Tough life, but he deserves it because he's one of those guys that can make or break an NFL team, and we know what he's done here in Cincinnati, and what he's meant to the Bengals. So, first of all, I'm glad to hear that. Not that I doubted that or thought he would say anything different. The Olympic thing is very interesting because I agree with him on a lot of that.
The guys who were playing in the game,
I would love to see him do that.
The guys who were playing in the games weren't even D1 athletes. They just had dudes out there. I don't know what they were thinking with all of that.
Right. It's like the old days when they had basketball, but you had to be amateur. And so obviously the United States had all these professional guys playing in the NBA, and we would send our college players against the old Soviet bloc who didn't have professional players, but they had 35-year-old dudes playing for their Olympic team who were professional because that's all they did was and so yeah, that's kind of what's going on with this. But and we knew once our NBA players could play in the NBA or in the Olympics that it would be game over, and the dream team proved it. Now it's getting a little different now because I will say this about me being a young lad back in the 70s. I'm like, if there's one sport, team sport, that will take off professionally in the world, it will be basketball. Because, back then you did have the Soviets playing and gosh, I guess it was Yugoslavia back then. You had some good teams around the world, but nobody can touch the United States. But I always thought if there was a sport that became a world team sport, and I wasn't counting soccer back then because we didn't do a lot of soccer in the States, but I thought the NBA, the basketball could be the sport that might have a global, teams in Paris, London, wherever, playing in a professional league, because I felt like everybody was interested in it. And obviously back then soccer was big around the world. It just wasn't that big in the United States. So I still think basketball is probably the number one that, how do I say this, that Americans really, really, really care about on a worldwide stage. I mean, we care a little more about soccer now than what we did, but I think still basketball would be the one that could go a global league.
Well, as you bring up soccer, our last topic here before we get out of here for this week, FC Cincinnati.
Wow.
They're on quite a roll. Obviously, against Inter Miami, you didn't have Lionel Messi, but Cincinnati, they beat DC United as they were supposed to do, 3-2, and they beat Inter Miami 6-1. 6-1 in a professional soccer game.
5 goal difference.
6 goals is absurd in a professional soccer league.
It is. In fact, that's as many as FC Cincinnati's ever scored in an MLS game. That's like I think they've done it once before. But that was amazing. That was a beatdown. And I know the players didn't want to say it was a statement, but it was a statement.
As it should have been. I don't care who's out there. You have number 1 versus number 2, and you drub them 6-1.
Yeah, that's a statement. And you know, it was, and how many guys scored? Like 5 guys scored the goals. I mean, they spread the wealth.
Correct.
That was
5 guys.
So FC Cincinnati, I believe, has won 12 of the last 14 matches, which is an incredible run. They have heated up at the right time, and you hope they keep it going. And once you get to the playoffs, it's kind of a different deal. But you know, they're going to end up with probably that best record in the league, and you know, that'll be 2 years in a row at that franchise has it going on. They're doing the right things, and you know, I felt really good about the GM and the coach when they came in, and I feel even better now.
Well, they play Charlotte on Saturday at 7:30. Heavily favored to win that one, and we'll see. But as for now,
on Saturday against Miami, did you bet them?
I didn't. The spread wasn't worth betting on. Cincinnati was heavily favored because of Lionel Messi being at Copa, but I don't know. I didn't touch it. Not worth it. If you lost and the odds were stacked that bad, you were only going to make on a $20 bet. I think you were only going to make like $10.
Yeah, that does blow.
So, outside of that, though, I don't know. I'm excited to see FC Cincinnati on top.
Oh yeah, it's great. It'd be nice to see them finish it this year, but again, like I said, once you get to the playoffs and
anything goes.
You get it is. You can't afford a bad night. And they ran into a red hot Columbus team last year. I mean, that team was hot. Actually, that team's playing well again. As much as it pains me to say, but they are, and maybe that's what it comes down to again. But I think, you know, early in the year, I wouldn't have said this because the firepower wasn't there, but they may have the firepower to match them now. We'll see. They're getting there, blasting 6 goals, and they haven't been fooling around. They're starting to climb up. When you look at goals scored, they're getting up there. Columbus is ridiculous, but
Cincinnati had games where there was a point in time a couple weeks ago where I was begging for them to score more than 2.
Exactly. We talked about it. And that's why we thought that could be an Achilles heel. And it's very interesting because, you know, they lost their goalkeeper for a while. They had some defenders go down and another one go to the national team. And it's like, my God, are they going to be able to keep this up because they haven't been scoring? Give Pat Noonan credit. I mean, he kind of turned it over. It's like, you know, they're still playing solid defense, but they're running up scores.
We'll see what happens against Charlotte here on Wednesday. But as for now, like I said, FC Cincinnati's on top of the leaderboard and live to fight another day.
They've got the best record in the whole league. I mean, 15-4-3.
Love to see it.
That's crazy. I mean, those are kind of video game numbers right there. So that's really, really, really good.
How soon does high school football camps start? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, they'll be going at the end of this month. They're going to be rallying them up. I mean, they're already doing their summer stuff, conditioning and all that. They did that starting in June. I'm glad you brought that up. I remember this was back probably in the 70s, maybe the early 80s. But what was funny was like, so the OHSAA, they have these rules where you can have pads on or not. Oh my God. I just, all I know is this coach had his players in pads and helmets and stuff before you're supposed to. And the Inquirer shows up and they snap some pictures and they talk to the coach and they do a preview on this team. And then right there, bigger than crap, on the front page of the sports section, these guys in pads and helmets. And every other coach in the area is like, you know you're not supposed to be. Oh, they got busted. That's the kind of crap that happened before social media. It is, because you can get away with that.
Yeah.
And he just picked the wrong day for the Inquirer to come call him for their high school preview, because they used to put out this whole section. I remember I'd have this thing stored in my desk. They would have a section devoted only to high school football as a special section they would do in August, previewing high school football season. And it had a rundown of every team in every conference in greater Cincinnati. And like, we would have to refer to that thing. Like, it was amazing. A different time, but yeah, this guy got busted thanks to the media showing up and snapping a couple shots.
Well, I look forward to hearing
one in pads and helmets right now. They're not supposed to be.
Well, I look forward to hearing your look around the Cincinnati landscape in regards to high school football coming up in the not so distant future.
Some intel. I still have some plugged in sources, and I honest to God, I was thinking today, Aaron, that I was thinking about something coming up later, and then I'm like thinking about football season starting, and I'm like, my God, I can't wait for that. And it's like, wait a minute, I don't want summer to end yet.
Right.
I am looking forward to football season. I mean, I love high school, college, NFL. I mean, when that stuff's cracking, those pads are cracking in early September, late August. I still like going to games on Friday nights, so I don't want it to end. And the good news is, for me now, since I'm retired, I don't get as busy as I was in television with the football thing. I can just go to the games, and then I can golf earlier in the day or whatever.
Well,
I don't want golf season to end. If
you're looking to scratch that football itch, we have 7 days from today before the early release. If you pre-order NCAA football, the early release is 7 days from today.
So can I still pre-order it or not?
Yes.
Okay.
So, just saying.
A
week from today.
Cost.
I did the $150 bundle that includes the Madden and NCAA.
Oh, okay. So you got both.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, for $150, you should get a dinner with Nick Saban or something.
Yeah. In any case, for George Vogel, that's another episode of George in the Jungle, brought to you as always by Remington Tavern. You can find them at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Check them out on Instagram at RemyTavCincy, or follow them on Facebook. But we will see you next week, Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. We will talk all things Cincinnati one more time.
Thanks, Aaron.